A former Broward County, Florida sheriff's deputy is on trial for not doing enough. The highly unusual trial of Scott Peterson kicking off today. He's accused of failing to do enough to confront the school shooter who killed 17 people and injured a dozen more at Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland in 2018. 6 jurors will have to decide whether Peterson, who was nominated in 2017 as Parkland Deputy of the Year, should be convicted, not for his actions, but his inaction on February 14, 2018. Within 2 minutes of the first shots being fired inside the building at the high school, Peterson arrived at the east door. At that moment, the gunman was moving up the stairwell to the second floor after having killed 11 people and injuring 13 others on the first floor. Prosecutors allege Peterson could have prevented the last 6 murders had he gone into the building to confront the 19-year-old gunman as soon as he got there. Instead of storming in, Peterson retreated to a position of safety, stood outside an adjacent building for 48 minutes, according to the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. Peterson's charged with 7 counts of child neglect and 3 counts of culpable negligence for the 10 people the gunman shot on the 3rd floor after Peterson arrived at the building. 6 of those shots were fatal. Peterson's also charged with 1 count of perjury. If convicted, he could effectively face life in prison. After the Florida Department of Law Enforcement's 15-month investigation, Commissioner Rick Swearingen said in 2019 the investigation, quote, shows former Deputy Peterson did absolutely nothing to mitigate the MSD shooting. There can be no excuse for his complete inaction and no question that his inaction cost lives. Peterson was widely criticized, including by then President Trump, for his inaction, and he responded in an interview at the time.
He doesn't know. He wasn't there. You know, it's easy to make comments and say things. You know, in Washington, D.C., you weren't there. You didn't know what I believed and what I assessed and what I heard those first few minutes on that scene. I think it was just easy for them to make me, you know, the punching bag.
Peterson's lawyers argue he wasn't sure if the gunfire he heard was coming from inside. His attorney also saying Peterson had no legal obligation to enter the building and confront the killer under Florida law. And even though Peterson was a member of law enforcement, prosecutors charged him under a statute that applies to caregivers. Peterson's attorney is arguing that his client isn't a caregiver and therefore can't be convicted of the felony child neglect charges. Peterson says he's eager for the trial to finally happen.
I'm looking forward to it. To be honest with you, I want the truth to come out, and if it's going to be through a trial, so be it. I'm eager. I think, you know, not only people in Florida, the country, most importantly the families, they need to know the truth of what happened, because unfortunately it's never been told.
Joining me now is Peterson's attorney, Mark Eiglarsh. Mark, good to see you. Before I ask you the legal questions here, look, I assume in retrospect your client regrets not doing more, right?
Well, he regrets not having more information that would have led him to know precisely where the shooter was located. You know, the premise is that he hears shots and he should know precisely where the shots are coming from. We have concrete, beyond all doubt evidence that he did not know. In fact, we'll be calling 22 witnesses, other officers, teachers, students who heard the same shots he did and could not tell because of the pronounced echo in that area where the shots were coming from.
But they certainly weren't coming from where he was waiting, right?
They were coming from the general area, which is why he can narrow it down to, hey, 1200 building. But that also could have meant that he was under sniper fire, shots coming from the side of the building, the top of the building, a shooter walking around on campus. He had 4 minutes and 15 seconds to figure this all out and never got any real-time intelligence on his police radio because all those calls went to Coral Springs Police Department, a different agency. My client sat there for over an hour waiting for someone to tell him precisely where the shooter was located.
And I think that that's the biggest problem that a lot of people have, right? Is that he sat there, is that he waited, rather than being proactive, even if he doesn't know exactly where it's coming from, at least going into the building and trying to figure it out.
Well, what people don't know, because the FDLE erroneously reported he did nothing, is that he ordered a code red. Code red were meant to save lives, and that's what he did. He didn't get credit for sending the assistant principal to the office to find out by looking at video where the shooter's located. He asked his fellow officers, Perry at 222902, where's the shooter? He was doing everything he could in real time to try to figure that out, but the information never came through no fault of his own.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your cable provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.